Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers, James and Justin, back again with another reaction video. And we got a cool one here. We're going to look at Dharma Speaks again and the Bhagavad Gita made easy. Now, this is done in 3 parts. So this is just the first part. I think it takes us through chapters like 1 through 6 or something like that, and just gives like a basic breakdown. All right, so let's take a look.
The Bhagavad Gita is seen as the flagship scripture for Hindus. In just 700 verses, we find a neat blending together of the profoundest wisdom and various philosophies within Hinduism. But unfortunately, many Hindus, despite knowing about the Gita, are completely unaware of its contents, often not motivated or perhaps feeling incapable of understanding what is being said. This short 3-part series aims to present the key concepts that Krishna explains in the most accessible and comprehensible way. To begin with, let us understand the place of the Gita within Hindu scripture as a whole. The Vedas are seen in principle as the highest authority and have been divided into the Rig, Sama, Yajur and Atharva. Each of the Vedas can loosely be divided further into 2 general sections. One is the Karma Kanda, which is made of hymns and instructions centered around the Vedic ritual known as the Yajna. This is where the different gods of nature such as Indra, Agni and Soma are worshipped to achieve different goals. The other section of the Veda is the Jnana Kanda. This is primarily based on texts known as the Upanishads, and here we find various teachings and truths outlining the metaphysical relationship between Atman, the self, and Brahman, the supreme reality. The Vedas were divided up by sage Vyasa, who also composed the great work known as the Mahabharata, which is an embellished record of historical events that took place some 5,000 years ago. Comprising more than 100,000 verses, the Mahabharata describes the conflict between 2 sets of cousins, the 5 righteous Pandavas, of which Arjuna is one, and the arrogant deceitful Kaurava brothers headed by Duryodhana. The feud climaxes on the Kurukshetra battlefield, where all the kings in the land are ready to start the greatest war the world has seen. The Bhagavad Gita picks up the narrative from here. The Gita contains 18 chapters and is best seen as being divided into thirds. The first third primarily focuses on an extended explanation of Karma Yoga and how this can bring one to true knowledge of our essential nature. The middle third brings a dramatic shift, where Krishna explains his true form as the Supreme Lord. He reveals the beauty of devotion before showing his ultimate cosmic form to Arjuna. The final third is a further grounding discourse on various topics such as the philosophy of Sankhya, the 3 qualities that govern creation, and the relationship between Atman and the Supreme Being. Chapter 1 begins with Dhritarashtra, the blind king, who is the father of the Kauravas, anxiously asking Sanjaya, his charioteer, what is happening on the battlefield. Sanjaya, with his gift of mystic sight, narrates how the 2 armies are bracing for battle. With Krishna as his charioteer, Arjuna scans the enemy ranks. He sees his cousins, grandfather, teacher and friends. Suddenly he is overcome with emotion. The prospect of slaying those whom he has loved and served his entire life brings him to a point of collapse. He is overcome with sympathy and confused about what is the right course of action. Alas, alas, we are bent on performing a most sinful deed by slaying our family members due to our greed for the pleasure of sovereignty. If the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to slay me in battle unresisting and unarmed, that would be better for me. Krishna keeps silent for the whole chapter while Arjuna spills out his thoughts. Eventually, from emotional exhaustion, Arjuna surrenders to him in helplessness. Krishna now leaves behind the guise of a charioteer and friend and assumes the role of a spiritual master. Immediately he draws Arjuna out of his emotional indulgence and into a grander vision of reality, explaining that the real truth to be known is that we are the Atman, the divine self. This self is eternal, untouched by the physical elements, aloof from this material existence. It is never born and it never dies. It is existing now and it will never cease to exist. It is unborn, eternal, everlasting and most ancient. It is not killed when the body is killed.
It seems appropriate, actually, to be thinking about some of these things in the midst of a battle. Yeah. Maybe that's part of the point. Is like something about a battle and the imminence of like one's possible demise,
Right.
the end of something, and then you've got this conversation now where we're gonna like talk about,
We'll talk about addressing a point that often gets overlooked. I think I've stated several times, like, you mean spirituality is all well and good when you're sitting on a bed of pillows.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
if you're how do you be spiritual in a battle?
yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Whether in childhood or old age, the Atman is unchanging. Just as we change clothes every day, the Atman too sheds and adorns new bodies. Every life is just one story in the Atman's journey. Arjuna is being made aware that beyond the body and mind there is a deeper reality, which is who we truly are. Krishna describes this philosophy of identifying with the Atman as Sankhya, which means an analysis. By analysing reality, we can come to the conclusion that there is the world, which is made up of physical elements, but distinct from this, there is the eternal divine Atman. While stressing this higher knowledge, Krishna also points out practical guidance. Fundamentally, Arjuna is a Kshatriya or warrior. His role in society is to stand and protect righteousness. His dharma or duty, therefore, is not to run away from his responsibility, but to rise and meet the need of a situation. Having described the nature of the Atman and the importance of one's dharma, Krishna criticizes those who do not think of higher ideals, but only on the materialistic and ritualistic part of the Vedic practice. The point Krishna makes is that those who use religion to enjoy pleasures in the afterlife lack wisdom. Life in spiritual pursuit should be used to transcend material pleasures, not to revel in it in another life. Detachment as well as the performance of one's righteous duty provides the foundation for one of the most important ideas in the whole Gita.
Oh, it hits home. Because think about how many other, there are a lot of other faiths and belief systems out there that are all revolve around getting to through this life so you can enjoy the carnal natures of the cosmic afterlife. And this is saying to, not do that. This is like the opposite of that.
Yeah. One of the, it's been a while since I read the Bhagavad Gita, and I got to be honest, I didn't give it as much attention as it probably deserves. But I read through it once, and one of the vibes I got was this idea of like doing what is right for you to do and duty, like better to do what you're supposed to do than somebody else's, better to do what you're supposed to do even poorly than it is to do someone else's thing.
Yeah.
And maybe this is off, this is just my own personal idea, but sometimes I think we miss out on enjoying things by being swept up in stuff like envy or, needing to seize things and covet it for ourselves. Like say you were a soldier in an army, you might be like, why do I got to be a soldier? Why can't I be I want to be a captain.
Yeah.
And you might lose something because, especially if you believe in multiple lives and stuff like that, it's like, you wasted this life. I purposely gave you this so you'd see everything what it's like to be you.
Yeah.
And you were so fixated on building up treasures elsewhere that you didn't soak up all the lessons and everything that it is to be in the situation that you're in.
Yeah. I'm sometimes torn by concepts like duty and like facilitating some role. And like, what about, the side of me that is like wants to pursue like the ambitious part of me that wants to like go out there and try and conquer something and achieve a task and choose the path that's not, clearly picked out by me from society. Like your job is to facilitate this role and be this type of a person within this county and country.
Yeah, let's stop arguing.
Yeah, and then there's like a part of me that's like, well, I want to push
higher
against that,
I feel like a wise person would be like, well, then do it with all your heart.
Yeah.
Like a wise person would be like, well, then revel in that because that's you. Because some people know their place and they revel in exactly where society told them they should be.
Yeah.
But if that's not you, then behold, your duty is to break the caste.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then, I think that another thing that plays a role here is this idea of seizing things and being swift to like, I gotta this. instead of looking around with your eyes open and appreciating the situation that maybe God's put you in, needing to it's only after seizing the flower that it starts rotting in your hand. It's like if you had just chilled out and accepted what was there, you could have been enjoying it to this day. But you had to have it. And now it's upon the getting of it, it dissipates.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Karma Yoga. You only have a right to the action itself and never to the fruits of that action. Do not make the rewards of action your motive, and do not develop any attachment for avoiding action. This is the essence of Karma Yoga, that we should act in the world without attachment to the results of those actions. This requires one to master the senses. Like a tortoise that withdraws its limbs, we need to withdraw our attention away from the outside world. Krishna points out that it is desire that entraps our consciousness, carrying our mind away, like the wind that carries a boat on the ocean. We have to remove this sense of I and mine, and thereby center ourselves within. But going within doesn't mean giving up on acting in the world. Krishna explains that action is life itself. We cannot escape it. Even to maintain our body, we need to act. Our very breathing is action. Karma Yoga is all about being in the world, but not of it. It is not about external renunciation, but internal renunciation of desire. But if we are detached without any desire, why would we act at all? The true Karma Yogi is set beyond any selfish motive. He acts not for his gain, but for the welfare of the world, or, as the Gita puts it, Loka Sangraha. This is unconditional selfless action untainted by the ego. Krishna points out to Arjuna that even he himself has nothing to gain. He has no desires, but yet he acts, not for himself, but for the benefit of others. The ignorant individuals, deluded by their sense of I and mine, believe that they are acting. But a true Karma Yogi sees the reality, that all action takes place in the realm of nature, and the self, the atman, is not touched by any of it. Desire is the obstacle to seeing this.
Just in the sort of defense of what you said a moment ago.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, now I'm going to be vulnerable, okay, folks? So maybe take it easy on me with my vulnerability. I've literally argued this point before. Why can't I be arrogant?
Yeah.
Why don't I get to be arrogant sometimes? I'm not arrogant about everything. I'm not sitting there going, check out how beautiful I am. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think I made a good point. Let me be arrogant.
Yeah.
And that has been my own struggle. But I look at that comical picture of the guy there with his money back. He's wearing a suit, enjoying the fruits of his labor. Let me buy you something because I'm the fat cat here.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that guy being like, what? Don't show that guy when you're saying that's the stupid guy. Sometimes I like to sit back and like a king. I want to be a king sometimes. Now, so what is just in defense of that? What are we going to pretend like, well, that's never ever me. You are asleep and blind if you can't see some part of yourself that likes to inflate your own ego a bit.
Yeah.
So what do we say? I know that some people don't take the low-hanging fruit here and think that I'm making some simple point.
Yeah.
Well, that's obvious, you're caught up in selfishness and that's that.
Yeah.
Don't be so simple as to not think that is not just the guy in the suit, man.
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes you'll be like, everybody's an idiot because I made a good point and they should have listened. Or I did all the chores and nobody else did any chores. How come they're not giving me more respect for doing all the chores? All of those are that same thing as that guy sitting on the chair, reclining, smoking a cigar and counting his money. Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So what is your answer? I want to know.
I don't have an answer. I think you bring up a good point, and that's part of the complexity, I think, of what is being brought here in this video. Sometimes there isn't an easy answer. Sometimes we've got to think about these things just a little bit longer. But what I would say is that, if it's all one, if it's all, atman or whatever, maybe that's part of it. Part of the duty, then that was your duty, was to be the guy sitting back with the cigar. And someone's like, no, don't say that. But maybe that was the duty.
You know what I just had an inkling of? Yeah. Is that I think humility gets a bad rap. I think that there's like a gift in humility. I keep being humbled, man. Why can't I just dunk in someone's face, spike the ball and, whatever, and take all the pride? I keep being humbled. I keep being put in my place. It makes me think that there's something overlooked about humility. Yeah. That that it's a treasure of some sort. You're just negating the treasure of humility. Go ahead, go be prideful, but you're gonna miss out on what humility has to offer, which is like sweet, the likes of which you'll never see if you're too arrogant.
Yeah.
Could be.
All right, let's continue on.
It blinds our vision like smoke from a fire. Desire invades our senses, mind, and the intellect. The goal is to master ourselves through yoga. But this knowledge is nothing new. Krishna states that this ancient science is being resurrected by him, but was originally taught to the sun deity Vivaswan and was passed down by different persons through the ages. At this point, Krishna famously declares why he is incarnated on earth. Whenever there is a decline in dharma, O Bharata, and whenever there is an increase in adharma, it is then that I manifest myself. This is the concept of avatar, that the ultimate personality, the supreme consciousness, descends to this material plane to destroy ignorance, to save and elevate earnest seekers. Having declared his divinity and the purpose of his descent, Krishna proceeds to really pin down the difference between karma and karma yoga. One who perceives inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent amongst men. He is properly engaged and performs his duty. But what does Krishna really mean by this? Karma is action that produces consequences. Anybody who is identified with their mind and ego is bound and constantly creating both good and bad karma through their thoughts and intentions. But to the one who has no desire, no attachments, and has mastered his senses, even if he engages in action, taking on all kinds of responsibility, such a person commits no karma and there are no consequences to his actions. Therefore,
that's interesting. That's the biggest hook right there. That's the hook. Now my ears perked up. What are you talking about? No karma.
Yeah. Actions without desire. So whatever action you take without a desire to it, regardless of what you do, won't have any karma attached to it.
Free from the obsession and desire for certainty. Free from needing to see the fruits as you anticipate they should be given.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. That's karma yoga, right? Like I'm going to do right action and be free from needing the fruits of my actions to unfold as, you don't claim the fruits. You just do it because it's what you ought to do, I suppose.
Yeah. I guess the devil's advocate part of me is like, then you become kind of like a robot? You feel like all your actions are like desireless. You're just like, I'm just functioning and I'm going wherever I'm pointed.
Well, to answer a question like that, I feel like you literally need like a pause. Sorry if it's boring, but it's like, it's almost like, what would you spontaneously do if you were in the right place spiritually in life? What would you spontaneously do if you were devoid of caring about the consequences, like devoid of needing it to benefit you?
Yes, that's the key there. We're needing it to benefit you in some way outside of desire. Yeah.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
Let's all just think about it.
Yeah.
outwardly, he seems to engage in karma or action, but ultimately, akarma or inaction is what is actually happening. On the other hand, if an individual who is not free from desire and attachments does nothing outwardly or inaction, he is still creating karma or action through his thoughts, feelings, and state of consciousness. The subtle point being made is that inaction through avoiding our duty and role in life actively breeds consequences. In other words, our indifference and lack of intervention to situations which demand our attention will also give birth to future karmic results. This is particularly relevant to Arjuna, who is bent on running away from his duty. Krishna states to act without attachment to the results is yajna. Yajna is not just a fire ceremony, it is an inner process where one makes sacrifices for a higher ideal. In this sense, our yoga practice to gain mastery over the mind and senses is also a form of yajna. But what is the actual end result of this yajna? Krishna says that by detaching our attention from the world, by centering ourselves within, we receive jnana, or true realized knowledge of the atman. It is this state of consciousness that actually burns up all karmic consequences. We are no longer a materially conditioned person, we are centered within. Once you recognize the Atman within, you can see the Atman everywhere. This wisdom allows one to rise beyond any form of judgment and see the inherent unity that underpins all creation. The learned Pundit perceives the same reality within a Brahmin endowed with wisdom, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and one who eats dogs. The yogi realizes that it is the same divinity that sustains all life, and so there is no distinction of higher or lower. To become such a yogi, we have to be detached from material desires. Then one is ready to enter into deep contemplation of the divine. The goal of dhyana yoga, or meditation, is to still the incessant fluctuations of the mind to realize the truth. As Krishna states, by constantly engaging himself in this way, the yogin who controls his mind attains the state of tranquility, which culminates in nirvana, which actually rests upon me. Meditating in the correct way, the mind should be like a lamp in a windless place that never flickers. Such a state gives rise to the highest joy and supreme peace, free from any stain of suffering. But, as Arjuna says, the mind is more difficult to control than the wind. How is this even possible? In response, Krishna reiterates that consistent, repeated practice will yield results. However much the mind strays, we must repeatedly bring it back to the goal. Even if we do not achieve the goal in this life, nothing is lost. We will inevitably take birth in the right context and situation, which will allow us to further our practice towards the goal. In this way, Krishna makes clear that we are on a cosmic journey over many lives to attain the Supreme. But who is the Supreme? Krishna explains that among all spiritual aspirants, the yogi is the highest.
Here's kind of an odd thought. He was talking about the right way to do meditation, and this is what should happen. It should be like a candle without flickering when you're meditating rightly. Sometimes I think the most enlightened masters are literally, if you could see inside their head, it would be like they'd be impressed that everybody's engaging in nonsense. They'd be like, I gotta hand it to you people that are fighting and warring and building businesses. Like, I'm impressed by you, because, we're going to these people for the answers and they're nothing but impressed that you're so admirably engaging in this life. Yeah. Sometimes I think enlightenment means, oh, I ruined it. I peeked at the presents before Christmas. Oh, I looked at beyond the veil. I should have just wholeheartedly built those businesses, and I should have wholeheartedly soaked up all the juice life has to offer. Because now I remember everything's fine. I don't need to worry.
And I was listening to a spiritual teacher this week who was talking about meditation. He was like, I don't do a traditional. I don't do sit on a cushion and meditate. I've turned everything that I do into a meditation.
Yeah.
Everything my life is a meditation. Yeah. So maybe that's that would be like an advanced, being who can do that. But
it's got to be frustrating when somebody's got serious issues they need you to answer to alleviate them. Yeah. And it's like, trust me, you don't want an alleviation from that. But you're smiling at me. What are you talking about? Yeah. But if it's all one thing, you actually don't need to worry. You're gonna get it.
Yeah, and if you don't get it in this life, you'll get it in the next one.
Yeah. So, just consider it.
Let's close it out.
And among the yogis, the one who is in contemplation of him is the highest of all. This last verse of chapter 6 sets the tone for the next 6 chapters, where Krishna dramatically shifts the line of discourse. Up until now, Krishna has spent most of his time on how one can go within and detach from the world. Now it is time for Krishna to explain and show that he himself is the Supreme Lord and the goal of all spiritual endeavor. Many thanks for listening.
Another solid one from Dharma Speaks. I don't know why this came to me right at the end, but I was thinking about if you were put in prison, and you know how many times when you're put in prison you're given a book, a spiritual book, whether it's the Bible or the Quran. Yeah. And I was just thinking the Bhagavad Gita would probably be a good book because like you said, the first 6 chapters are all about going within, and you'd have to spend a lot of time with yourself in prison. That might be a good book if you were trapped in isolation to have a book like that on you.
Prison guards must see the wildest stuff because you're right. Prisons are like monastic.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so much religious stuff going around. Guys coming out saved and new believers.
Yeah,
and Bhagavad Gita would be a good one if you had to like Prison Island. You know what I mean? What books would you take with you? Bhagavad Gita would be a good one.
Yeah, it'd be a good one. And then another thing I was thinking about was in the beginning it was showing a lot of the war scenes, and everyone had like golden chariots and crowns, and everything was gold. I was like, whether or not you believe it's like mythology or history, is there any of that stuff laying around? Like, is there like museums where like some of those gold crowns from that time period like still exist? Because we mentioned something on a Hanuman video and everyone was like, yeah, that bridge is like under the water, it's still there, and like and stuff like that. So I'm curious, from the Battle of Makarabath or something, I don't know if I said that right. Are there like historical items still around to this day? That'd be cool to know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess we'll end it here. If you have any comments, let us know. Share with us. And if you liked our reaction, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend. And everyone, until next time, stay spiritual.